Wouldn't it be amazing to sell the kind of real estate to the kind of people that you love being around, really in alignment with your values and your vision of what the future is going to be like? Today's guest is going to walk us through his story, exactly how he did that, got in total alignment with the business and life that he wants to lead. Stay with us. Today's episode is going to teach you how you can do that as well. All right, welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddard. Thrilled to always be finding very intelligent people around the world who are in our industry, who have a unique read upon what is coming in the future and how they are building a business that meets their goals. And today's guest is no different than that. He is a big thinker. His name is Neal Collins. Neal, before I do a full intro, thank you so much for joining us today on the Think Bigger Real Estate Show.
Yeah, Justin, it's my pleasure. It's truly a work passion. So it's a pleasure to get to talk about what we're up to.
I love it. I love it. So for those that don't know Neal, Neal's also based out of the Northwest. He happens to live on Whidbey Island up in the Seattle area, for those of you that are unfamiliar with that. And he really kind of stepped back from where he had been raised and said, okay, where do I want to live? What do I want to do? And has now built a career that's in alignment with all of that. So again, whatever your story is, the inspiration that I hope comes to each and every one of us today is to where do I want to live? What's important to me? And how do I build a real estate business that's centered around those things? I'm confident anybody that does that will be able to be not just successful, but also significant, which is what this show is all about. So Neal, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little more of your story. How did you get to Whidbey Island? Please connect the dots for us.
Yeah, that's a fun story. And I think so much of what our calling is how do we follow what our values are and what our interests are. Because I started my career outside of real estate. I was really into marine conservation, community development, natural resources, protection. And I found myself working with my partner, Alyssa, in India and the Maldives, doing whale shark research, doing marine protected areas with the government. And it was kind of living life backwards. Like I was living on an amazing white sand tree, coconut thatted beach, making no money, but I loved the work. And we ended up making a really hard decision of, okay, we can't financially make this work out for us. So what are we going to do whenever we go back to the States? And funny enough, I listened to a podcast on Bigger Pockets, and I was introduced to this concept of time freedom, of you can work in real estate, you can own at cash flowing productive assets that then you can get freed up to go pursue whatever you want. You can sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais, or you can pursue your passion projects. And that was when a light bulb went off. I thought, you know what, let's get into real estate, and let's get into real estate investing, particularly to figure out how do we fix up underperforming buildings that are typically in the small multifamily spaces is really what we are called to. And hopefully we'll get enough doors that we'll just be able to retire and come back out to the Maldives and continue our work. But life has a funny way of, once you start to focus on something, it's going to start to grow. And so we moved to Portland, Oregon, really got into the small multifamily investment space between 2 and I'd say 6 units, and then really started to figure out how to work off market, how to buy, how to renovate, how to reposition, how to manage. And life just kind of kept getting deeper and deeper into that business model, because once you start to renovate and then put them back out on the market, now you're a property manager. And then you realize if you're taking on more staff, you've got your overhead goes up, so you need more revenue. So we either need to help people manage their property, or we need to start buying and selling. And after about 7 years, we looked up and we realized that we've got a brokerage of about 20 agents doing kind of the unique broker or place-based brokerage thing that in Portland, as you know, is like, we love Portland so much because of whatever it is. And there's a whole cottage industry of amazing brokerages that have the same message, that are amazing brokerages, and they're doing great work. And so we had these agents, and we had about a couple hundred properties under management, all in great locations. And we're doing the things that we learned we were supposed to be doing, building this business and building a real estate team and working more on the retail side. But we woke up and we just realized that this doesn't encompass our values. Like we're not making the world a better place. We're not working with the kind of clients that we want to be working with. Like if we want to talk about what we're really interested in, like we're really interested in sustainability. And one of the things that you will find if you're new into real estate is that there is a tremendous amount of power that is congregated within the real estate industry. It's the majority of the wealth that's held in the world is in land and buildings. It is a major consumer of energy. It is it is everything that connects us in the common ground beneath our feet, in the food that we're eating. Like it all ties back into the real estate industry. And so we decided to really follow that thread of curiosity and say, what does sustainability look like within the real estate industry right now? And around 2019, it was still pretty disheartening to see what that looked like, where if you type in green real estate or sustainable real estate, you're going to find a lot of references towards energy generation of solar panels and of electric vehicles and energy efficiency. And these are all amazing things, right? But fundamentally, it was really missing, I think, the essence of what sustainability is all about, which is how do we thrive? How does the human and the non-human life thrive together? And one of the major problems is that right now, people and planet are in service to the economy, and the economy is in service to finance. And that's exactly the opposite way that it really should be. And so we took our team from 20 to 2 and said, we're going to really rethink how we're going to do our business. And what does this look like? Instead of just advocating for solar panels, like how do we also talk about health and wellness? Because this is a time that I started to see all the elders in my life came down with cancer diagnoses. And my mother-in-law just died. And so we started to do research into that to realize, 1 in 2 people are getting cancer diagnoses these days. And some people like to combat that saying, we're just living longer. But that doesn't account for the fact that now 52% of our kids younger than 17 are going to get a chronic disease they're going to have to deal with for the rest of their lives. And so it doesn't take too long to realize that what we're building out of and how we're congregating ourselves and the food we're eating, the air that we're drinking, like something's going on here. And if we are professionals in the built environment and we are working with homeowners and tenants and sellers and buyers, that we have tremendous leverage to start to shift the needle in the direction that we all know that we have to go in. And so we really started to congregate, what does this look like? So if it's sustainability and health and wellness, what else does it show up in the built environment? Well, it shows up in ecology, and it shows up in community. And then really it shows up in how do we embrace the spirit of place, and how do we really create frameworks rather than models, because real estate is place-based and it is inherently subjective. Of what works well in Whidbey Island is going to be very different from what works in New England or in the high desert. And so that's really what we started to jam on. And we really just realized that the opportunity as real estate professionals is to choose the clients that you want to work with by who are the professionals that are already working with those clients. So instead of going and finding the cheapest general contractor that we could find, we went out and we looked for contractors that were doing really innovative, forward-thinking projects, or landscape designers that are working with people to install ecological landscaping that are drought tolerant, beneficial for pollinators, are beautiful year-round. And we started to realize, like, that's where our client base is. And that has really led us down this amazing path where now real estate professionals from around the country and around the world are saying, you know what, I'm really tired of the mantra that our brokerage is putting out, which is this, like, there's 1.4 million realtors in the US. And we're all saying the same thing. We can help you sell your house for the most amount of money in the least amount of time, or let us help you find your dream home. And it doesn't take a marketing genius to realize, like, if you're parroting the same thing that everybody else is parroting, you're going to be struggling to get any kind of business. And you're going to be posting the same kind of things that everybody else is posting on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, because you think that's what you need to do to get ahead. And I fundamentally am trying to showcase that that is not the case, and you can do it very differently. And right now is the most critical time to really use our profession as a force for good.
Neal, I'm inspired by what you said, and I didn't realize how much we were in alignment prior to this conversation when it comes to finding your ideal clients. So for those that don't know, I wrote the book, The Upstream Model. Apologize, I didn't have the forethought to call it the Upstream Framework at that point, Neal, but it really does apply across a number of different applications. But the concept of the Upstream Model is that typically the way that we are taught to market, right, which I love what you said is very much carbon copy of what everyone else is doing. And kind of that carbon copy model, if you will, is to build a big database of the people that we know and to then try and stay in contact with all of them. And from that group, we will find people that either want to use us or refer us, right? My challenge with that is that number one, the opportunity cost of all the people that we're serving that won't use us or refer us comes at a great cost, right? We end up spending a lot of time and effort that doesn't ever return. And any traditional business would be like, this isn't a good use of our resources, but for some reason we keep doing it. And what I teach instead is to go find a professional, right? A professional who already has a client base, and find a way to serve that professional and then eventually that professional's clients, and you'll have a steady stream of clients. Some people ask, like, where do I start? I tell them to do exactly what you mentioned right there. Is like, who are the ideal clients that you want to be serving day in and day out? Now go backwards to say, who is a professional that already has a relationship with those people? So I love that you said that. That was unprompted, and it's fantastic. I'm going to share that with my coaching clients and any others that will listen. That this is how you begin building not just the business, but the life that you want. Imagine showing up every day, having plenty of business, plenty of customers, and each and every one of those customers you're extremely aligned with in how you want to impact the world for good. Like, that would just be a great life. That is the recipe of not just success, but it's the recipe of significance, which is what we're about here at Think Bigger. We all know that Think Bigger does not mean just to build some big empire for the sake of building an empire. It means to think bigger than real estate. It means to actually pursue more than just a profitable business, but also a life of impact. And Neal, you're a great example of that. And I absolutely love that our thought process on how we get there is very, very similar. Let me ask this question. What have you done once you identify that professional? What is it that Neal does to really add value to them, to really get that professional to begin to want to kind of share their clients to some degree, right? Like, what's that process for you?
Yeah. So what we call this is building an ecosystem. And if you look towards what an ecosystem does, it's a bunch of different actors that are working together towards kind of a common goal. And you don't even have to mutually benefit each other, but you have to know about each other, and you have to, if you can add value in that way, then I think it's tremendous. And so most, I think, new real estate agents are going to come in and they're going to say, well, if I'm building an ecosystem, I got to find a home inspector and a contractor and a photographer. And these are all amazing. Like, you need these professionals to do what we do every single day. Yeah. But if you're really trying to identify what you're talking about, is choose your customers first and then choose the people that are already talking with them on a regular basis. I think what we've found is if you're going to somebody like a permaculture landscape designer, they have written off the real estate community entirely. They think that we're all transactionally minded and focused, and like that's the holy grail for us. And for a lot of us it is. But if you can start to present that, hey, look, what I see, what my vision is real estate and service to life. And I want my clients to know about you. And hopefully, if we can show up in that manner, if we can engage you in conversation, if we can send you referrals, then you can do the same thing towards us. And one of the best ways that we do this is to know that there is value in creating community and value in creating conversation. And so I love food. And I think that inherently, if you're going to have a sustainable future, you're going to have a very flavorful future. And so what we like to do is we like to gather people around long tables outside and have open fire cooking, or some kind of coming together where we can break bread and we can get to know each other, and we can really identify that our commonality is that we're purpose driven rather than opportunistic of who's a client that's got enough money to pay for our work. And once you shift, because that is a big shift to go from I just need to work with anybody and everybody because I'm a real estate agent to I want to be very intentional and purposeful in my work, you're going to start to find that there are other professionals that are value led that are very similar to yours. And it doesn't have to be around sustainability and regeneration. It could be whatever. It could even be like design led. There are some amazing designers out there that you need to get to know, that you can really start to curate your clientele and curate your business that way. So that's how we do it. And it's the same tricks of the trade. How do you build a database? How do you stay in contact with them? Like, that's all amazing, solid advice of keep yourself top of mind, but do what you love. And I love to congregate people around food. And so that's been a tremendous way for me to get business.
I love that. Great ideas, right? When you're building an ecosystem, there's no doubt that the personal relationships have to take part in that. One thing that, that I teach sometimes is I'm walking people through my model, is that in the way most real estate agents approach a professional, right? Once you identify the person you want to serve and the professional that already has a relationship with that person, oftentimes what people will do is that they will simply take kind of a traditional approach of and this is no disrespect to kind of who coined this phrase. In fact, this man's been a mentor of mine. But when you say, oh, by the way, I'm never too busy for your referrals, that works very well with people who you already have a relationship with, who you already know you, love you, trust you. And it was designed for that purpose. But when you walk into the life of a professional and early on, you're saying, I'm here to get referrals from you. It becomes difficult to actually ever get anything, because quickly they see you as a solicitor or a vendor there to get something, and you get lumped into the same sea of sameness as everybody else. Whereas when you can come in, like I hear you saying, I'm here to add value. I'm here to learn about you. I'm here to be curious about you. What are your goals? What are your values? What's the purpose that drives you? And here's the purpose that drives me. Now there's something more in common that you have with that professional over just the fact that I need to get business and you look like you'd be a good person to give me that business, right?
Yeah, I've also found those professionals, they all have their own dreams, aspirations, and desires as well. That if you start to really scratch that surface, you're like, okay, where are you going with your business, and what do you want to do with how do you see real estate impacting that? That's a fundamentally different shift of another real estate agent coming to them being like, I want your referrals, to one saying, what's your vision, and I want to learn about that. And it really starts to create a much more of a mutual relationship, because that's what it is. Like, we're creating meaningful relationships that can last over time.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I teach is when you meet with that professional, once you've been introduced properly and you sit down to meet with them, all too often we've been trained to have our elevator pitch ready to go, right? 30 seconds and then maybe 60 seconds. Like, that is not the way to build a relationship, is to talk about yourself and to more step in. And it, by the way, that immediately puts you in the category of this person's a vendor. They're here to sell me something, right? Whereas when you can come in and instead act as a peer, to where you're there almost as a business consultant type feel, where you're very curious about them, where are they at, where do they want to go? I mean, all the things that you just mentioned was absolutely beautifully put. And to come in and have that conversation, not under the guise of I'm really here to get, I've got it really well camouflaged, but you're genuinely interested in hearing about who this person is. Are they a fit with who I want to be surrounded with? Are like genuinely looking for ways to add value. When you come in with that mindset, number one, it's going to get a lot easier, and you're going to want to do it because it doesn't feel insincere. It doesn't feel like you're there marketing. You're genuinely there to give and to look for alignment and to see how you can contribute. And I feel like that's a lot of the breakdowns why there's so many programs and systems and coaching set up around creating accountability around your lead gen.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so difficult for people to have conversations with people? And it's because at the very core of all of that, it's I'm here to get something from you. And we as humans, I don't think we're like in our deep DNA, I don't think that's what we're made for, right? Is here to get something. I think we're actually here to give something. And so it goes contrary to that. And so it gets very difficult for people. And so we have to, through our own grit and will and outside force, be able to say, I'm going to make these calls because I'm gonna reach my quota. I'm gonna get my number. I'm gonna build my empire. And again, I think it goes contrary to who we are as humans at the core. And I think as we start to shift to really be like, how can I contribute? What purpose am I passionate about? What purpose are you passionate about? If there's alignment, great. Let me see how I can contribute. And when that becomes the motive, then all of a sudden, all the shackles that normally keep us from lead generation go away, because it's not about lead generation. It's about alignment and developing a purpose with other professionals that are aligned with who we are. And it gets really easy and it makes it very enjoyable as well.
Yeah, and I'll give listeners a hint on how you go about this process, because it is a process of knowing yourself. That if you can internalize the sum of your experiences, like what happened whenever you're a child, what were you really gravitating towards? What happened whenever you left high school? Where have you traveled? What are the jobs? And you really start to see the patterns of that, to understand what your values are and what your interests are. That's your uniqueness. And your uniqueness is what forms values that you can then bring out into the world and will ultimately lead to a vocation that you can understand. This is the reciprocal value that I can give to this person, rather than just saying I need to give values to this professional. So what does that look like? It is follow your energy and follow your values, because that's where you're really going to start to find, okay, this is how I set myself apart from everybody else, and to go get the kind of business that I really want to do. And I think that is the most energizing thing about this work, is I get to work with amazing people now across the country that are far more knowledgeable about sustainability and regeneration, that come up with incredible projects. And the value that I get to bring is, how do we finance it? How does it fit together with the sticks and bricks of it all? And really, who is the ecosystem that I can provide to this project to really get it off the ground?
That's actually a really beautiful thing that you've talked about there, Neal, which is like, okay, what happens if I don't know what my, what value I bring to the table? What are my values, right? And I think you gave us some very, very insightful ways to go about doing that. And it coincides with what I've taught in the past, which is there's a lot of different ways that you can build a business. It's more what you need to ask yourself is, what am I willing to get up and do day in and day out? Because in there is the magic bullet, which is consistency. It's doing the right activities day after day, week after week, month after month. You will develop a great business. But if it's not aligned with who you are at the core of what you actually, the value you can bring to the world, then either you're going to burn out or you're going to spin out. You're not going to want to do it consistently enough to ever get the results. And how fun, right, to build a business that is kind of aligned with that North Star that's inside of each of us, right? That calling, as you described it, which I think is a very powerful conversation for each of us to have internally. And if we have a hard time doing that, to reach out to the people that can help us to discover that. Because once we can get on that thread, it's really, life gets really quite beautiful, and business gets way easier, I think, right? You don't have the uphill resistance that oftentimes it feels like when we're out of alignment. So.
Exactly. And I think that's really how you build a profession, and you widen your stance to realize that, are you a real estate agent or are you a real estate professional? And it gives you the longevity in this career so that you can be very transactional at the beginning of it. But if your aspirational desires are to be an investor or a developer or a designer or whatever it is, like, it gives you that freedom to really just start to build that foundation. And so I think really understanding that there are steps and there are methodologies that you're talking about is, I wish I had this 10 years ago going into the business, because it would have saved me a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over building a business that just was not in alignment. And it makes all the difference in the world. Because even if you're just starting and you're struggling, you can at least struggle really well and have fun doing it.
That's a great way to put it. Neal, I've got one question that I ask every big thinker that walks across the stage, and I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. And I do believe that you are a big thinker. And my question to you is, what does Neal Collins continue to be or continue to do to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your possibilities? What does that look like for you?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's a definite need in my life to create structures of discipline. And going into business, I really gravitated towards all the self-development books, and cherry picked the ones that I really got out of it the best, of like how to have a morning routine before my 5-year-old wakes up, and like really cultivate that inner calm and resolve. But just being curious. And I think doing shows like this, I've got a podcast as well, and that's been a tremendous catapult to really launch myself into other conversations that are going on, and to learn about all the different ways that people are really, I call it throwing spaghetti at the wall, because no one really has solutions to a lot of the issues that are coming up right now. And just that kind of incessant curiosity is what drives me. And it pushes, whenever you find somebody that will like really push the ceiling on your thinking, you're like, aha, that's it. That's where my energy is going. And so it's really trying to understand, like, my job is to field build on a national level while keeping my feet firmly on the ground in my community. And between those two kind of the ends of a dumbbell, it keeps me just like super energized, very passionate, and building out a career that I'm really just glad and privileged to have.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Such a fun conversation. I really, really appreciate you, Neal, and all that you bring to the industry and what you've brought to us today. You've really inspired us to think differently and even think bigger about how we go about building a business, that it can be more than just reaching our goals, right? Kind of our monetary goals. It should be much bigger than that. And it can be if you surround yourself with the right big thinkers and really seek out that purpose. So I would encourage anybody that got something from this, go back and listen to it again. I'm confident you'll find even more golden nuggets that Neal left for us today. So Neal, thank you so much again for your time. And to everybody listening here today, my final request is this. They are 3 simple words. You know what they are. Go think bigger. Neal, thanks for helping us do that today, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.